Great. So, yeah, welcome to the Natural Hay Fever Solutions webinar. So I'm trying to make this quite practical. So I'm going to give you things that hopefully you can do for you or for your kids, like right away to start making a difference. I'm going to talk about kind of little tips that you may or may not have thought of, talking about lifestyle changes or lifestyle things to bear in mind. I'm talking about supplements and kind of things that you can add in to relieve symptoms. And then I'm going to talk a fair bit about homeopathy at the end, because obviously homeopathy is my speciality. And I'm going to talk about things that you can use for yourself homeopathically, and then things that, you know, it might be better off talking to a homeopath about. So I am, well, you both know who I am, but anyway, I'm Alice Carr. I'm a homeopathic health coach. So I qualified as a homeopath in 2013 from the Contemporary College in Bristol, and I added in the health coaching in 2023, which enabled me to talk more about nutrition and lifestyle changes, and fitness and all those extra things which are really important. I specialise in hormonal health, so things like perimenopause and menopause, PMS and PMDD, you know, menstrual irregularities, all those kind of hormonal things. But I do also treat children, sort of general immunity boosting, sort of respiratory things I've treated, quite a lot of molluscum people come for. And I put here, and even men, because normally it's the women who come, and then sometimes they send along their husbands. So yeah, I frequently treat hay fever after the main problem has been dealt with. So people will come with a hormonal problem, say, and with the homeopathy, we kind of rebalance that, get that much more under control. And then they'll say, oh, and I get hay fever really badly. Is there anything we can do about that? Yeah, turns out there is. So I'll tell you all about it. So why might we want a natural solution for hay fever? So a few reasons. It might just be that you prefer to use natural medications rather than conventional medication. It's a preference. Some people may have tried antihistamines and had side effects. I'm going to talk about antihistamines a bit more in a minute. Sometimes antihistamines stop working, or people start needing more and more doses to make it work. So they're looking for a different solution there. Sometimes nothing works. You know, maybe the symptoms are really intense and antihistamines just aren't doing the job. But I would say most often people are looking for a long-term solution so that they don't have to take medication every day throughout every hay fever season. And they want to feel that, you know, there is a way to improve and get better, and it's not stuck with this for life. So yeah, the problems with antihistamines. So I'm not against conventional medication, but I think it's good to know that there are problems with antihistamines and that long-term use may not be the ideal, so that we can make choices, sort of informed choices, once we know. So there are different kinds of antihistamines, but these are some of the problems that might be there. So drowsiness is a big one, and I'm sure, you know, anyone who's had antihistamines, certainly in the past, the kind of older antihistamines would have experienced that. So some people can feel just, you know, really sleepy and not with it. And if that's lasting for weeks, you know, that's very uncomfortable. As I mentioned before, there can be this kind of build-up of tolerance, and then people have to start taking more, and then they might notice more of the side effects. So yeah, they're not working anymore. So because they're antihistamines, they're trying to stop the histamine response, they have to kind of go to those, it works by going to those sites and kind of dampening down that histamine response. One of those is in the brain. So that's why it says it crosses the blood-brain barrier. And the problem with that is it can have an effect on the nervous system and lead to sort of more cognitive problems. So we might see low mood and depression, which I've listed there. We might see brain fog, kind of difficulties taking in information, that kind of thing, some memory issues. Yeah, so kind of slightly more serious things, and also affecting sleep. Particularly, antihistamines can reduce REM sleep, so that's our rapid eye movement sleep. When we're dreaming and we're, you know, repairing and sorting stuff out in the brain, which is really, really important. So yeah, so they've gone to that brain site for the histamine. They also dampen down the histamine response in the gut, and that's the other place where then it can lead to problems. So they do that by reducing stomach acid, and that stomach acid is actually really necessary for absorbing nutrients and minerals and vitamins. So we can see, as a result of that, iron deficiency, anemia, and vitamin B12 deficiency. And then lastly, we've got this excess load on the liver. So any kind of medication has to be processed by the liver, and, you know, before it's eliminated from the body. And also hormones are processed in the liver. So, you know, we can get someone who's maybe perimenopausal, maybe they are taking some medications generally, maybe then you add on the antihistamines as well, and yeah, the liver is under a lot of pressure. And then we can get symptoms where the toxins are getting reabsorbed into the body, the hormones are getting reabsorbed into the body, and we can get things like skin symptoms and irritability, headaches, yeah, all these nasty things. So, of course, in a short-term way, antihistamines can be great, but they can cause longer-term issues. I think I forgot to say, but if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. I'll have a look in a bit. Yeah, so why do people get hay fever? So it's an immune response. It's an autoimmune response, which releases histamine in response to allergens that enter the body. The body perceives them as a threat. It stimulates the immune response to produce histamine, which then triggers inflammation. So you'll see the redness, the congestion, and then trying to get rid of the stuff from the body. So runny nose, runny eyes, sneezing, all of that, trying to get rid of things. So that's fine, but actually, you know, pollens and so on are not really going to do the body any harm. So it's an autoimmune response. It's an overactive immune response, and there are various reasons why that might have started in the first place. So one of those is it can be inherited, and we do often see it passed down in families. So yeah, with homeopathy, we really try and address that side of things. I'll talk a bit more about that later, but that inherited tendency is really important. We believe in homeopathy that there are kind of patterns of disease and illness that are passed down through the generations, and homeopathy can help clear those. Yeah, chronic inflammation in the body is another reason. So if your inflammation levels are already high, and then you're getting the histamine release and the inflammatory response from that, then we're going to take it up to a really serious level where it's causing you a lot of problems. So yeah, that can be another reason why some people get it more than others. Chronic stress. So when we're under stress for long periods of time, well, at any point, I'm just going to have a little drink. When we're under stress, at any point, the immune system is activated. And of course, when you're under stress for long periods of time, that never quietens down. So it's always on high alert. So when these allergens get into the body, they're seen as a threat more often than they would be if we didn't have that heightened immune response already. So the next one is gut dysbiosis. That just means an imbalance in the good and bad gut bacteria. So, you know, we now know more than ever how important gut health is for the whole body, but particularly for inflammation and sort of toxins recirculating in the body through leaky gut and things like that. So it's important to keep that balance. And then just kind of from the outside, pollution and climate change are making hay fever worse. So pollution, I think it's because, you know, there are more particles in the air and they're binding with the, you know, with the pollens and stuff like that. And then that's coming into the body, and that's, you know, that's definitely foreign matter that the body's thinking, yeah, I really don't want this. And I think that's making it worse. And climate change, it's, you know, it's hotter and drier for longer, and that is extending the hay fever season, which, you know, is really bad if you're a hay fever sufferer. So how can we help hay fever naturally? So as I said, I'm going to look at these areas: homeopathy, supplements, lifestyle adjustments, and self-help. Just a word about homeopathy, if you don't know about it already. So homeopathy works on a system of like cures like. So with conventional medicine, we try and get something that stops the thing that's happening in the body, try and suppress the thing, the mechanism that's happening in the body, hence antihistamines. We try and stop that histamine response. With homeopathy, we try and use substances which, if taken in a large dose, would cause the same symptoms that they then cure in a very diluted dose. So we're going to see this in more detail later, but the sort of great example is the onion. So onion has been made into a homeopathic remedy, and if you imagine the symptoms you might get when you're cutting up an onion, so, you know, the stinging, teary eyes, maybe a runny nose, that kind of thing, those are the symptoms that the remedy in its dilute form can cure. So it is a great hay fever remedy because those are the sort of hay fever type symptoms. Yeah, so we're not going to start with homeopathy, but I just wanted to sort of give a bit of an overview of that. We're actually going to start with self-help. So these are just quick tips. I'm just going to run through them. If you suffer from hay fever, or your kids do, you've probably tried many of these, and some will have worked and some won't, but there might be a new one there for you. So yeah, sunglasses, brilliant. Just, you know, stops the pollen getting in. Wraparound sunglasses, even better, more protection. And clean them when you get home. Don't kind of put on the polluted ones when you get in. Tie back long hair because it catches the allergens. Yeah, take off your outer layer when you get home. You could maybe brush it down outside, or wash it if you've got serious symptoms. Definitely wash your face, you know, moving the allergens away from your eyes and nose and mouth. And if it's quite severe, have a shower, you know, when you get in, wash out everything. Yeah, keep windows shut on high pollen and or windy days. I don't know if you've noticed recently, because it has been quite dry, and then it got windy. There was so much in the air, and I don't really suffer from hay fever myself, but there was just so much dust just general dust in the air that even then my eyes were getting irritated. So I can't imagine for someone with hay fever how bad that would be. Next, apply a layer of thick moisturizer around your nostrils. It traps the pollen, and then obviously wipe it off when you get in. Yeah, don't dry your clothes outdoors. They'll just catch all the stuff. Dry them indoors. And dust with a damp cloth so you're not sort of moving pollen and particles around the house. You're actually getting rid of them. Vacuum regularly. And it might be worth considering an air purifier. They are pricey, but I think they do. I've heard that they work well. Obviously, I haven't tried it myself, but yeah, bit of an expensive solution. But I think, you know, some people have hay fever so badly they'll look for any solution. So that's the self-help. Now, the lifestyle adjustments. So we're really focusing here on reducing inflammation, because as we saw earlier, that's heightened inflammation already is then going to lead to many more problems. So avoid smoking, limit alcohol, severely limit ultra processed foods. So, you know, they will contribute to inflammation in the body, but also they're full of substances that the body is not going to recognize as food. So I think that in itself puts the immune system on alert. You know, the body's thinking, I don't really know what to do with this stuff. I need to eliminate it. The gut bacteria can't really process it. You know, it just puts a real toxic load on the body. Reduce sugar, it's inflammatory. So on the positive side, you know, eat and drink whole foods. They're anti-inflammatory, antioxidant. Your gut will thank you. And that's the next part, look after your gut. So yes, do that with whole foods. You can also think about, if you think that might be an issue for you, you can think about a probiotic supplement. And also fermented foods can be really good. I don't know if anyone's tried them, but things like sauerkraut and kimchi, sort of pickles, they can be quite strong flavors. So, you know, you have to sort of find one that works for you. Just live yogurt is fantastic. Kefir, which is kind of a bit yogurty, but has more live bacteria in. And you can get plant-based ones as well if you're dairy-free. What else? Sourdough bread is really good. Miso. So if you're having Oriental food, miso soups. And kombucha is a great one. So if you've been in the habit of having fizzy drinks or something, replace that with a kombucha. It's less sweet. The sugar gets fermented, and that is full of the good bacteria as well. So that's a really good one. I've put moderate exercise. And by that, I mean, exercise is great. It's great for your body. It can help reduce inflammation and stress in the right amounts. So all exercise will put a stress on the body, but in the right amounts, it's stimulating, helps the body repair itself. If it's in excess, that can put a strain on the body, too much inflammation, too much stress. So just, you know, be sensible about it. Know what's your level. But yeah, it's good. Prioritize sleep. Sleep is so important for body repairing, for de-stressing. Yeah, it just helps everything. So have wind down time. Yeah, maybe go to bed a bit earlier than you normally do if you've got into sort of bad habits of staying up a bit later. Have a regular bedtime and wake up time. That is the best thing for sleep. I could talk loads about sleep, but I won't right now. And reduce stress. And of course, it's easier said than done. But basically, any time that you can make time for yourself is important and not a luxury. It's a necessity. So Yes, I mentioned wind down time before bed. That is really important to switch off. And, you know, great things like meditation, breath work, deep breathing exercises, journaling can be great, gentle stretching, yoga. It's all really good. But mostly, I think finding time just to not do very much is actually what we all need. So next. Supplements. So this is things you can add in that will help with the symptoms. This isn't homeopathy, this is extras. So top of my list is quercetin. It's an anti-inflammatory compound that you find in foods. A lot can be found in red coloured foods, so red apples, red onion, red peppers, but it's also in capers, broccoli, I think. Yeah. So, you know, if you're eating a wide range of foods, you will be having quercetin, but it's, you know, if you're suffering from hay fever, you might want to take a supplement because that will obviously give you much higher dose. This one here, Terra Nova Quercetin Nettle Complex, is one I really like. I'm not kind of affiliated with them or anything, but it's a really nice one. It's good quality, and it combines the quercetin with nettle, which I'll talk about in a little minute. You might consider magnesium. So magnesium is a relaxing mineral, basically, in the body. There are, I don't know, 7 or 8 kinds of magnesium. So probably you might want to go for a combination. This is particularly useful if you have respiratory symptoms with hay fever, so it can kind of relax all those muscles like in the lungs and so on. And the kind of magnesium for that is gluconate or malate. Magnesium bisglycinate is the one that helps people relax before sleep. So that's why I say you might want to consider a combination magnesium. Polynose and eye drops and nasal spray are just really soothing and gentle. They've got natural ingredients like chamomile in, which is really soothing. They're made by Dr. Vogel. Yeah, they're just very nice. Nettle tea or a nettle supplement like you got in the quercetin can be really good. So we all know the nettle sting, I'm sure, where you get, you know, the hives, the urticaria reaction and the skin. That's a histamine response. So it's a bit like homeopathy in that like cures like. So what can cause that histamine response in its sting can help dampen it down with a tea or a supplement. Next, matcha. New studies show that it may reduce sneezing in hay fever, and they've done mice studies. I'm not quite sure how they got the mice with hay fever, but anyway, it's the evidence isn't that strong at the moment. But you know, if you like matcha, and I love a matcha, you can maybe swap that in instead of some coffees or teas in your day. Yeah, green tea is actually high in quercetin as well, so there may be some link there. And you can try eating local honey. Again, there's no conclusive evidence, but people swear by it, and it's that sort of like cures like thing again. You know, it comes from the flowers that cause the symptoms, and taking some of that may help cure the symptoms. So then we're going to talk about homeopathy. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and just check in case there's any questions. Okay.
Can I ask a quick one, Alice?
Yes,
so
of course.
Magnesium.
Yes.
Sorry, I missed the part. So you were suggesting that maybe actually a combination of magnesium might be sort of the best way to do things,
because there's about 7 or 8 different kinds of magnesium.
I know it's a bit of a minefield.
Yes, it is. And commonly magnesium bisglycinate is great for sleep, but the ones I mentioned are good for muscle relaxing, the citrate and the gluconate, not citrate, sorry, no, that's more for your bowels. Don't go there.
Okay.
But the other one I mentioned, malates, that's right.
Yeah.
Are good for the relaxing the muscles. So, you know, if you want a kind of all round helping relax things, it's probably good
Yes.
to go for a combination.
Okay. Brilliant. Thank you.
And Jo says we've found an air purifier in the bedroom has made a big difference. Ah, fantastic. Yes. So yeah, like I say, you know, a bit more of an expensive option, but actually can be really useful. Okay, cool. I will go back to the sharing. You can't see it, let me know. Yes, so homeopathy, I sort of mentioned a bit earlier of an overview, and I just want to focus on what we can do with homeopathy for hay fever. So we kind of work on hay fever as homeopaths in three ways. We work on those inherited tendencies, we work on the individual's constitution, and we work on the immediate relief of the symptoms during the hay fever season. So in homeopathy, working on inherited tendencies is called miasmatic prescribing. The kind of things that are passed down through the generations causing ill health are called miasms in homeopathy. Miasms is a kind of old-fashioned word. It means like leaving a sort of taint or cloud on things. And yeah, we see that, so, you know, where families have had certain diseases in the past, they leave a kind of imprint in the genetics, and then people are more susceptible to certain illnesses, and in this case more susceptible to allergies. So it's often common that people who get hay fever also get other allergies. And what the miasms do is they just reduce the level of health generally. So yeah, not only do you have sort of tendencies to certain illnesses, but you reduce the overall health. So what we're trying to do with the homeopathic remedies targeting these miasms is clear some of that stuff so that it can bring up the level of health, and people are more able to fight their susceptibilities and the things that tend to cause them problems, and thereby gradually kind of lowering those symptoms. So with the miasmatic prescribing, we tend to do that over the winter before the hay fever season starts. So we're trying to clear some of those genetic patterns before we get into the hay fever season. So there is a whole protocol which I have done with people over the winter, using remedies to treat each of these miasms and clear those ready for the season. So yeah, and then we also look at this sort of constitutional prescribing. So we'll find remedies that fit you as a person. So the whole of you, your the things, the illnesses you tend to get, your likes and dislikes, the kind of foods you like to eat or that you have issues with, your moods, or you know, all of these things come into what is your constitution, and then we match homeopathic remedies to your constitution, and that again strengthens your health, improves your immunity, and can help you deal with these kind of allergic issues much more easily. So the constitutional stuff we can do over the winter or during the season. And what we find is with the miasmatic prescribing and the constitutional prescribing, then year on year, the duration and the severity of symptoms of hay fever gradually reduces. So it doesn't mean that you have to kind of have homeopathy for years on end, but if you have the winter protocol a couple of winters, and then you treat in the hay fever season a couple of times, we really do find that the symptoms of hay fever are much more under control, and also just don't last as long. So maybe, you know, going from like 2 months to a couple of weeks over time. So it can really make a big difference. Then we have remedies for the immediate relief of symptoms during the hay fever season. Again, we're matching remedies to the symptoms. So like cures like. So there are remedies that are more focused on eye problems or more focused on sneezing. We match with that. And I'm going to talk about some of those in a minute. One remedy that I pretty much always recommend is histaminum. So it's a homeopathic remedy made from histamine. And if you give that at the start of a flare-up, it can really just rebalance everything, and it's not suppressing the histamine, but it's allowing the body just to work to rebalance that into a more controlled way. So I'm going to talk about some homeopathic remedies that you might be able to do for yourself, and I just want to say before we do that a good idea is to note down your symptoms before you start trying to choose a remedy, because once you start reading through the remedies, you can kind of think, oh, well, I'm a bit of that and I'm a bit of that, and then you get really confused. So note down your symptoms and then really just try and match what they are. And it could be physical symptoms, it could be whether you're hot or cold, and it could be what mood you're in and what you feel like doing, whether you want to be with other people or you don't want to be with other people. Yeah, whether you're thirsty or not thirsty. Yeah, so we'll look a bit more at that in a minute. So yeah, these are things that you can try for yourself, and if you want to try out homeopathy for hay fever, this is where I would recommend you start. So first up are tissue salts. Now, I don't know if any of you've used them or know them, but they used to sell them in Holland and Barrett and things. Not sure if they do anymore. They might do, or some of them. There's sort of two main brands. There's Schussler and there's New Era tissue salts. And the kind of first one you try for hay fever is combination H. So it's a combination of a few tissue salts. Tissue salts are very minute doses of minerals, so it's kind of homeopathy. It's slightly different, but they stimulate the body to resolve the issues for itself. So you can take those daily in the season and see if they help. Another tissue salt that you might want to try is Natmure, and we're going to talk about that as an individual remedy a bit later, so see what that's all about. And just to say, with all of these, if they don't work, it means it's not the right remedy, or you need to do some miasmatic clearing, or you need some constitutional prescribing. So in those cases, you might want to talk to a homeopath. But yeah, they're great places to start and to try. And for some people, they just solve the issue in the season. So the next one is Helios hay fever combination. And Helios is a homeopathic pharmacy. You know, if you Google them, you'll find them, but you can also find their hay fever combination ready made up. I think you might even be able to get it from Amazon, but certainly if you Googled it, you would find it. And their hay fever combination is a combination of 3 really useful hay fever remedies: Allium cepa, Euphrasia, and Sabadilla. They're all plants. And I'm going to talk about them individually on the next slide. Another one you might want to try is the Walida mixed pollen 30C. 30C is just the strength of it. And it's a mix of grass, tree, and flower pollen. So talking about like cures like, it's a combination of the pollens. So, you know, giving those as a homeopathic remedy can help rebalance that. Ainsworth's is another homeopathic pharmacy, and they also do mixed pollens. blend. It's just which one you can get a hold of more easily. I don't think one's sort of superior to the other. And interestingly, if you know exactly what your trigger is, you can get that made up as a remedy. You'd probably have to phone Helios to get that. So I've put as an example here, you can get oilseed rape, pollen and stamen made up as a homeopathic remedy. And I know a lot of people do react to oilseed rape, and there are quite a few fields around here. So that could be quite a useful one if someone knows that that's definitely what their problem is. Then we come to individual homeopathic remedies. So, you know, if you see one that matches, you could try this for yourself. This is where it becomes a bit more difficult to distinguish, and you might want to talk to a homeopath. These three I've grouped together here are the same ones that we had in the Helios hay fever combination. So allium cepa is the red onion, and it's what I talked about earlier. So the symptoms that you get when cutting up an onion, this is what it can help cure. So we've got runny nose and watering eyes, red burning eyes and eyelids, can be sensitive to light. Interestingly, worse in a warm room and better in fresh air. So even though the allergens are outdoors, they will feel better in the fresh air. They can get a headache, and there's a possible cough and hoarseness. Euphrasia is from a plant that's nicknamed eyebright. Lots of eye symptoms. So if it's all the hay fever symptoms are concentrated in the eyes, then you might be thinking of this remedy. Watering eyes, burning and swelling of the eyelids. There can be runny nose as well, and the discharges, as opposed to allium cepa where they're quite watery, these ones are going to be thicker discharges. Possible cough with that mucus again, and worse in the evening. Sabadilla is a Mexican plant. So it also has red burning eyelids. It has watery eyes and runny nose. So this is where, you know, it can be quite difficult to distinguish. But the Sabadilla has spasmodic sneezing, so a lot more sneezing than allium cepa and euphrasia, that you wouldn't really think of that with them. There can be pains around the nose and eyes, what they call in the books a stupefying headache, which sounds horrible, and they can feel pretty miserable with their hay fever. So you can see how that combination could be really good as a starting point for hay fever. It covers a lot of hay fever symptoms. Getting into a few more specific ones here. We've got Wyethia. Now this is all about the itching. The plant looks like a miniature sunflower, but yeah, it's about those itches that you can't reach, you know, where you really want to scratch and you can't scratch. So it's like the back of the nose, back of the throat, inside the ears, the roof of the mouth. The throat can feel swollen, and there's a lot of clearing of the throat and swallowing. Nat Mure, you might remember I mentioned it because it can also be found as a tissue salt. So if you felt these symptoms matched your picture, you could start with the Nat Mure tissue salt and see if that helps. So Nat Mure is salt. That's where it comes from. Violent sneezing is one of its key things. Burning tears, watery nasal discharge, congestion of the nose. And I think this is really useful because antihistamines aren't great on the congestion symptoms. And Nat Mure tends to feel better by the sea. So if you've got someone who's, you know, they're really suffering from their hay fever, they go out for a day by the beach and they're absolutely fine, then that might be the one for them. And mood-wise, they do feel quite down with it, but they don't want any consolation. They don't want to be helped. Whereas pulsatilla definitely does. So that's our last one here, the windflower. And it's got very changeable symptoms. So one day they might be fine and the next day not, or they might have eye symptoms one day and nasal symptoms the next day. The symptoms change. They're better in the open air. Quite thick discharges often have a sort of yellow-green tinge to them. itchy, burning eyes, possible shortness of breath. They tend to be thirstless with any sort of condition. And mood-wise, they're weepy and clingy. So they you can see this particularly with kids. So they're having all the symptoms and feeling terrible, and they want to just cuddle up on the sofa and maybe have a bit of a cry. So I've just got 2 more homeopathic remedies, and then we're done. So Nux vomica is worse in the open air and wind. So that kind of makes more sense to me if there's pollens around, but some of the remedies aren't like that. So this is where Nux vomica is different. They're very sensitive to light. They're quite sensitive generally. They've got inflammation of the eyes, itching in the ears and nose running just on one side, could be either side, but just one, headaches, and they do get very impatient and irritable when they're feeling rough. And the last one is gelsemium. So they've excessive sneezing, but they have a real sort of heaviness to them. Whereas Nux vomica is a bit sort of twitchy and irritable, gelsemium is just weak. So they've got these heavy drooping eyelids, red sore aching eyes, heavy, weak and drowsy is how they feel. And they just want to be left alone. They really haven't got the energy. So I think that's all the remedies. Yeah. So as you can see, there's a bit of crossover between the remedies, but there's also ways you can differentiate. So in terms of like their mood and how they're feeling, or which symptoms are kind of the worst for them. But if you're not sure, or the combination remedies don't work or whatever, that's the time when you want to go and talk to a homeopath. And probably for treatment over the winter in preparation for the next season is when you might be wanting to talk to a homeopath. So just put sort of my details here. You can work with me. I do homeopathy and health coaching combined. I do appointments in person or online. I've got health packages, a pregnancy package, and I've recently introduced gut health and DNA testing. And I'm finding the gut health testing really, really useful for people, and seeing good improvements when they implement the changes. And as a thank you for watching the webinar, I'm offering 15% off your next appointment with the code HayFever26. My booking system isn't set up for a code, so you just have to mention it if you wanted to book an appointment. And those are my contact details. So just going to go back and see if we have any more questions.